What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today I'm counting down the top 10 most popular sneakers of 2019 so far. Obviously popularity is somewhat subjective, so I didn't want to create a list just based on my own personal opinion of what I thought the top 10 most popular sneakers of 2019 were. I wanted to create a list based on something a little bit more concrete, like resale figures. So what I did is I scoured the internet for places that listed their top selling sneakers in chronological order so I could literally go off that rather than trying to come up with something that probably wouldn't be right. And I'm glad I looked for concrete numbers because what I found really surprised me. So the only place that I could find that had actual sales figures available to the public was StockX. And what I did was I narrowed down my filter a little bit so it only showed sneakers that were released in 2019. Now to be fair, on StockX, most of the sneakers that resold in 2019 were released in 2019, so the list didn't really change that much. And like I said, this list could totally blow you away like it blew me away, or it could just not surprise you at all. We'll have to wait and see. But before we jump into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you want to see more content just like this. And if you're more into tech unboxings and things like that, make sure to check out my second channel in the description below. But without further ado, let's start counting down the top 10 most popular sneakers of 2019 so far. Number 10, the Air Jordan 1 High Travis Scott. The fact that the Travis Scott 1 Highs were one of the most sold sneakers on StockX for 2019 really surprised me, especially since the shoe has never really dipped below like $900. So even though I don't understand the amount of sneakers sold, I do understand the hype because Travis Scott is one of the biggest names in sneakers right now. I think he could one day surpass Yeezy. I know that might be blasphemous to say, but you never know. Everything that Travis Scott has released with Nike and Jordan Brand over the last year and a half has resold for crazy money, and all the prices just keep seeming to go up. And as of right now, the backwards swoosh high top Travis Scott 1s seem to be everyone's favorite. Although the brown mocha color blocking isn't something that a lot of people probably would be into if it wasn't a Travis Scott collaboration, the backwards Nike swoosh is so eye-catching that the sneaker really stands apart from everything else. Plus, factor in the popularity of the Air Jordan 1 silhouette right now, it's no surprise that this shoe is a lot of people's favorite. In addition to the backwards Nike swoosh on the lateral side of the shoe, the sneaker also features a hidden stash pocket around the top of the ankle. That was something I didn't even realize was on the sneaker until I got them in hand and saw that there was Velcro. Not only that, but you've also got some Cactus Jack and Travis Scott hits around the sneaker, making it one of the most unique sneakers to drop this year. While the amount of this crazy expensive sneaker sold this year surprised me, the actual hype behind the shoe didn't at all. A collaboration on one of the most popular sneakers of all time, the Air Jordan 1, with someone as influential as Travis Scott is always going to be insanely popular. Number 9, the women's Air Jordan 1 High UNC patent leather. Even though this sneaker was technically a women's only release, I can almost guarantee you that most of those sales were to dudes. The patent leather UNC 1s released during All-Star Weekend in February, and as you can probably tell by its place on the list, it quickly became the biggest release of that weekend. The upper of this Air Jordan 1 is made up entirely of patent leather, which some people really like and some people like myself aren't a huge fan of. The colorway of the sneaker was of course UNC themed, which means it came in tonal blues and also some whites, and overall it was a pretty great looking shoe. Of course it was also a limited release and one that resold the day of release for around $400. And the hype behind this shoe definitely contributed to its popularity. A lot of people still really seem to love this sneaker. Number 8, the Air Jordan 6 Infrared. Also releasing in February of this year, the Air Jordan 6 Infrared came back for the first time since 2000 with the original Nike Air branding on the heel. This primarily black Air Jordan 6 is one of the most, if not the most popular Air Jordan 6 of all time because it's one of the OG colorways and it comes in a great color. The sneaker features a black nubuck upper, a translucent blue outsole, and of course infrared detailing around the midsole and on the heel. The Air Jordan 6 Infrared has a lot of history behind it and is one of the best looking Air Jordan 6s, at least in my opinion, so it's no surprise to me that this sneaker is on the list. Number 7, the Air Jordan 1 High Gym Red. Probably no surprise to you at this point, but another Air Jordan 1 is on the list, and that's the Gym Reds. While this sneaker isn't an OG colorway, it features a lot of the OG colors like black, white, and red. And it's arguable that it's almost impossible to make a bad looking Air Jordan 1 in black, red, and white. And I know as soon as I said that, someone on Twitter will have sketched something that looks terrible and sent it to me and be like, I did it. And I mean, you're right, but I'm talking about actual designers at Jordan Brand creating a shoe. While this may not be one of the most hyped Air Jordan 1 colorways, it is one of the more popular ones because it was somewhat accessible and it still looked really good. When the Gym Reds first dropped, resale prices were somewhat high, but when more people started to get their pairs in hand from Nike.com and the sneakers app, prices started to drop. And I really do think that the reason this shoe is on the list is because when you buy it, you are getting an Air Jordan 1, you're not spending crazy money, and you're still getting a pretty solid colorway, so it seems like an obvious choice for a lot of people who are on a budget. And while I don't have a pair of Gym Red ones personally, I am still sort of on the lookout for for one. Number 6, the Air Jordan 1 High Turbo Green. The Turbo Greens were another All-Star Weekend release, and I'm pretty surprised that there are so many sneakers from February on this list. The sneaker came with sort of a turquoise green suede upper, and it also featured some interesting gray lettering on the lateral side of the midfoot, which I don't think a lot of people liked. It almost felt like a half-assed attempt to have some sort of off-white vibe, and it just didn't come off that well. However, that tiny detail obviously didn't stop a bunch of people from buying this sneaker. I think the reason the Turbo Greens were so popular was because it was a different kind of Air Jordan 1. It was something that we hadn't really seen before, and I think that intrigued a lot of people. The materials were a little bit different than you usually see on Air Jordan 1s, and the colorway was not your standard Jordan 1 colorway, and it was really great for spring, and because it was a more muted green, you could wear it with pretty much anything, so it was a very versatile shoe. Not only that, but the fact that the shoe was only semi-limited meant that there was still a lot of hype behind the sneaker, but a lot of people could get their hands on pairs. I do have to say that the Air Jordan 1 Turbo Greens were one of the shoes on the list that didn't surprise me whatsoever. Number 5, the Air Jordan 1 High Obsidian. I don't know how surprised you can be at this point that there's another Air Jordan 1 on the list, but we've got the Air Jordan 1 Obsidians. This sneaker was the men's sizing and all leather version of the UNC ones from earlier this year. This was kind of the shoe that everyone was hoping that the original shoe would be. The Obsidians have almost the exact same colorway as the patent leather UNC ones from earlier in the year. However, this release was not technically tied to UNC. But the main difference other than sizing between this release and the previous release was the makeup of the upper. Instead of a super glossy all patent leather upper like the UNC ones, the Obsidian ones were made up of tumbled leather. This gave the shoe a matted out, more standard Air Jordan 1 look, and a lot of people really seem to prefer this look to the previous one. I actually think the reason that the UNCs are on the list at all is because they released so much earlier than the Obsidians, so everyone bought up those pairs because they didn't know the Obsidians were coming out. This shoe personally was one of my favorite releases of the year because I love this colorway and I love the Air Jordan 1. It's a shoe that just really goes with everything, and because it's got color blocking that's similar to that of the black toes, it really looks like an OG colorway as well. Coming in at a very fitting number 4, the Air Jordan 4 Bred 2019. The Bred 4s are probably the most popular Air Jordan 4 colorway of all time, and this 2019 release was the first time that we had the original Nike Air branding on the heel tab of the sneaker since 1999. The sneaker features a really clean and minimal black nubuck upper, and of course is accented by a white midsole and red outsole. I mean, what can you say about the Bred 4s that hasn't already been said? It's one of Michael Jordan's most iconic sneakers, and the history that was made in that shoe really can't be beaten. When this shoe re-released this year, Nike and Jordan Brand did make sure that there were tons of pairs available. You shouldn't have had a hard time grabbing this shoe. And I think that's one of the main contributing factors to why this shoe is so high on the list, because it was such a popular colorway and there was just so many pairs available. I mean, if you're looking for a classic pair of 4s that are very wearable, the Bred 4s are about as good as it gets. Number 3, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 V2 Unmark. Are you surprised it took this long to get to the Yeezys? I was a little bit too. Just to clarify, the Unmarks that are on this list are the non-reflective GR version and not the much more limited 3M version that, let's be honest, look pretty much exactly the same. The Unmarks are sort of a dull tan take on the Yeezy Boost 350 V2, and they also feature the static prime knit pattern and the clear stripe on the side of the shoe. I had a pair of Unmarks at one point, but I got rid of them because I felt like they looked like every other pair of Yeezys, and if you like this shoe, great. It shouldn't actually be too hard to get because there's so many of them and they're not even that expensive. Even though this colorway might not be that exciting, for a lot of people this is their only pair of 350 V2s because it was relatively inexpensive to buy for resale, and like I said before, there were a lot more of this colorway available than some of the other previous colorways. If you were someone who wasn't too deep into sneakers and you were looking for a pair of 350 V2s to rock on the regular, this was probably the colorway that you would get. Number 2, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 V2 in the black colorway. I know it's probably a boring choice, but this is actually my favorite 350 V2 to release this year. And I have a few reasons for that, and I think a lot of people like this shoe for the same reasons, and that's 1, it's a black sneaker, so it's very wearable, and 2, it's very reminiscent of the original Pirate Black V1s. The sneaker even features red stitching around the pull tab, just like the Pirate Blacks from 2016. The Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 V2 is also a very comfortable sneaker due to its prime knit upper and its full-length Boost midsole, so it's a kind of shoe that you can wear all day with no issues. And hey, if you missed out on this shoe on the original release, it's releasing again on Black Friday, making it even more available and probably pushing it to the top of this list. Number 1, the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 V2 Clay. Of course it's another 350 V2 at the top of the list. Not a very exciting choice. I think it's funny how people always say that Yeezys are dying, but they consistently outsell outsell every other sneaker on the market, and as you can tell from this video, they were the top 3 sneakers on the list. The Clay 350 V2 started out as a regional only release that dropped only in the Americas, and then eventually a couple months later they released around the world. The fact that this colorway is number 1 on the list kind of took me by surprise because I personally don't love the Clay colorway. I think it's kinda But obviously it doesn't matter what I think because a lot of people really like this shoe, enough to buy it so much that it's at the top of the list for the entire year. And according to StockX, it outsold the nearest Jordan by 16,000 pairs, so it wasn't even close. And it actually also outsold the black 350 V2s, which were number 2 on the list, by 7,000 pairs. For reference, the second largest gap between 2 consecutive sneakers on the list was only 3,000 pairs, so it doubled that gap. I don't get it. It's just an orange Yeezy to me. Maybe people love that colorway so much that they just bought so many more pairs. Maybe there was a lot more pairs available. I couldn't tell you what the reason for that is, but apparently it's a big enough reason that this sneaker outsold every other sneaker on the list by a huge amount. And the fact that it was the Clay colorway that was number 1, I never would have guessed. I'm kind of shocked. I mean, I knew it was going to be on the list somewhere, but number 1? Crazy. But that pretty much wraps up the list for today. Now, I would love to know your thoughts on this list, and if any of the shoes on this list surprised you, or if you just weren't surprised by any of it. So let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.